All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming to hear my presentation. Let me start by apologizing. A little bit too much time on airplanes lately. I can't stand the sound of my voice right now, so I apologize for inflicting it on on all of you. Maybe this will help. I'm going to talk this morning about the project my company, Azarga is working on in Siberia. The project is called Unkur. How do I move slides? This one? Okay, thanks. The Swiss charmingly call this a Disneyland slide. It's possible that despite my best efforts, a forward-looking statement or two might escape my lips this morning. Please exercise your judgment before you act on any of them. Our company, Azarga, is a new company. It's the new chapter in a company that was called European Uranium Resources. We spent some years developing uranium deposits in Central Europe, principally in Slovakia. We ended up becoming a shell as a result of Central Europe's reluctance to develop uranium deposits in their backyard. About the time that I was trying to decide what to do with my now shell of a company on the TSXV, I received a phone call from my chairman, Alexander Molyneux, telling me about this project he picked up in Siberia, a silver copper project called Unkur. My background is geology, principally exploration geology. As I spoke with Alex, it quickly caught my excitement, and we very quickly managed to do a deal. We timed it right. We were able to raise a bit over $2 million, our first public offering, which got us started. And we restructured the company with a rollback, came out with a new name, and started. We now have just over 46 million shares outstanding. We came out at 10 cents, bounced off 60 cents, and are now in the 35 to 50 cent range. We don't trade very much, as a result of which there's quite a bit of volatility in our price. We've done another financing, which we closed a bit over a month ago. We have enough money in the bank to get through the program I'll talk about in this presentation. Unkur was discovered during the Soviet era by the regional exploration that the Soviets were so good at. It was a very methodical program that was done. It led to the generation of a historic resource. Those of you familiar with Russian and particularly Soviet era resource classifications know that it's a somewhat arcane system for classifying resources. It doesn't translate very well to either JORC or 43101, but the resource estimates that came out during the Soviet time range from about 40 to over 140 million tons of about 0.7% to 0.8% copper. Interestingly, the Russians at the time, the Soviets at the time, were not terribly interested in the silver content. They analyzed core periodically for copper. They got very poor copper recovery, as a result of which one of the things I thought when I first looked at the data was it probably understated both thickness and grade. It has turned out to be the case. Also, very exciting for us, the silver data that we were able to get was a result of just some composites of old samples, which indicated a silver grade close to 70 grams per ton. Again, we're finding that that was probably understated. While as an exploration geologist, I think of this deposit as a copper-silver deposit, and I explore it as a copper deposit. Commercially, it's a silver-copper deposit. The value in a ton of mineral at this deposit at current prices is about 60% from the silver and 40% from the copper. We have a 25-year license that was granted directly and cleanly by auction from the Russian government. The way the deal is done is our public company, Azarga Metals, has 60% of the project with the right to earn the remaining 40%. It's a very simple put-call arrangement. Once we've met certain minimum requirements and investment, including publishing a maiden 43101 resource estimate, there's a put-call arrangement. We can call the remaining 40%. The vendors can put it to us at market value. If we can't agree on a market value, it goes to a third-party evaluator. It's a very clean process. It's one that I've used successfully in other projects to get to 100% ownership. Our initial program has the objective of generating a maiden 43101 resource. We expect to have this come out in 2017. I get the 43101 police on my back if I talk about it too much before the work has been done. But I've told you what the historic estimates were, and I can tell you, as I've said in news releases, I continue to believe that the Soviet-era drilling understated both thickness and grade of the deposit. We won't be able, because of both time and budget constraints, to drill out the entire deposit as was drilled during the Soviet time, but I do believe that their estimates understated the size and prospectivity of the deposit. We've been getting some intersects that for my 42 years of exploration, most of it in copper deposits, are some of the best intercepts I've gotten in my career. Some of the more spectacular ones are 40 meters at just under 66 grams per ton silver and 0.74% copper, with an even higher grade sub-intercept that you see written here. 10 meters at 134 grams silver and 1.63% copper. It's just a phenomenally high-grade deposit. I told you earlier about my background. I am an exploration geologist, but I have spent my time in operating mines. I've run mines, I've built mines, as a result of which an expression I often use as a miner is, I worship at the altar of high grade. And one of the really beautiful and exciting things about Unkur is its grade. It's located in eastern Siberia, north of Chita, near a town called Chara. The infrastructure is phenomenal. A lot of my, particularly my North American friends and colleagues, when I'll tell them I'm working in Siberia, they assume that I'm in the middle of nowhere and trekking into a remote location. The infrastructure is actually better than that in most projects I've worked on around the world. We're less than 10 kilometers from the Transbaikal Railway, less than 8 kilometers from the Transbaikal power line. This is always surprising to me. The cell phone reception I get on our property is better than the cell phone reception I get at my home in rural Northern California. The infrastructure is really quite nice despite the location. The other misconception people often have about working in Siberia is they tell me, well, you must shut down for winter time. And actually, no, the travel is easier in winter because we drive on snow and ice roads. Drilling is easier in winter. We're drilling, as I'm speaking to you, we have two drill rigs turning, drilling for Corp, and 3 crews working, digging trenches for us. My mentor in the copper business, Dave Lowell, who some of you may have heard of, used to tell me if you want to find a big mine, the easiest way to find it is find another big mine and bring a drill rig with you and start drilling next to it. We're in a very fertile and endowed copper province. I don't have time to discuss all of the regional geology and all of the deposits, but the most significant one near us is the Udakan deposit, less than 22 kilometers to our south, which is 1 billion tons of copper ore, somewhat lower copper grade than Unkur, and significantly lower silver grade. For reasons that I don't yet understand the geochemistry of, Unkur is remarkably rich in silver compared to the other deposits in the district. I'm sure someday we'll understand why, and we'll use that knowledge to help guide our exploration. For the moment, it's simply a nice observation that we can't explain very well. Relatively easy terrain to work on. Unlike Udakan, we're not in the mountains, we're in the rolling hills. Next to it will make it quite easy when, optimistically, the time comes to build a mine there. There's water nearby, both underground, both subsurface and surface. As I mentioned, we're very near the railway. Less than 3,000 kilometers from the major Pacific ports from which we could send a concentrate to any smelter in the world. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the high voltage substation within just a few kilometers of us. The larger orange boundary is our mineral license area. Within it, the green crosshatched area is the area that's our primary exploration area. That's where the Soviet resource was drilled. I don't use the phrase drilled out because even in Soviet times, it was still open in both directions along strike and down dip. So even their 140 million ton more optimistic estimate was still open, both directions on strike and down dip. Work we're planning this year will be possibly as much as 6,200 meters. We're right now at about 4,000 meters this season. We're starting to think that we might stop at another 1,000 meters and call that enough for the first resource estimate. We haven't really decided yet. We will put in 3 to 6 trenches. The mineralization comes very close to outcropping, particularly in the western part of the main resource area, which again adds some validity to our belief that this will be initially an open pit mine, which will eventually then ramp down into an underground deposit. Our objective this year, driven to a great extent by the TSXV 43101 regulations, is to generate a maiden resource so that I can start talking about this as a deposit and not just as a prospect. I believe that we're valued right now very much as an early stage exploration company because I'm simply not allowed to talk very much about the unverified historical estimates. Once we have a resource, we become a whole different story, and I believe that we will be able to not only generate our maiden 43101 resource quite early in 2017, I still believe it's realistic to take this through a preliminary economic assessment or scoping study before the end of 2017. So we'll have gone from inception to 43101 scoping study in less than 18 months, which I think says quite a bit about the deposit and also a lot about my team in Russia. We are very much, although we trade on TSXV, you are looking at the head office of our company. I'm the only full-time employee who is not in Russia. We have a part-time CFO. All of the rest of our staff is at this moment in the field in Russia, other than our country manager, Sergei Stefanovich, who's here today so that he could hear me talk and ask me a gentle question when I'm done. We're very proud of the fact that virtually every dollar we've raised is going into the ground and not into any form of corporate overhead. I mentioned earlier some intercepts. I actually think I detract if I talk too much from this. I'll leave this up for a few seconds and let you look at them. I'll repeat what I said earlier. As an exploration geologist, these are the types of intercepts that I live for and that I dream of. It's a very spectacular, yes?
Dusty, how many meters have you announced so far of that 6,000?
About 3,000. I think we've got about 500 meters still in the lab right now. There's about a 3-week delay. Okay. Some nice spectacular samples from the trench. And as I'm being told to wrap it up, I'll simply have some pictures of what it looks like there, including the de rigueur picture of mineralization. Beautiful scenery picture, a bit about who runs the company. And I don't think I have time to take questions now, but I will be around after this if anyone wants to catch up with me. Thank you very much.